Today on One Man Garage, we're going to learn about the greatest carburetor in the entire world. On these Buick Quadrajets I picked up cheap recently, they just had just a little bit of surface rust on the tops. And the throttle blades were still moving, but I put them about an inch deep in evapor rust to soften up anything in the base plate and flipped them over and actually got the rust, flash rust off everything on the top. These are around like 78 model, 800 CFM Buick. You can tell by the linkage the way it is. But I'm going to tear into these, see how they look, and see if we can build these up to be some good quads for the fleet. Because to be fair, it is the superior carburetor. All y'all haters out there just means you don't know how to work on them, that's all. Had saved this door that we took off the closet, never going back on. Thought, wait, I got those sawhorses. I could have me a little carburetor work stand. Do a little exploratory. We want to build these Buicks if they're both going to run good. Probably start off with this one. It's a 1705 8241. Should be a 78 Buick 354 barrel engine. It would have been in quite a variety of GM cars because all the swapping around well, anyway, they swap stuff around. Maybe this will turn into a Quadrajet teardown video. If I can put the camera somewhere. This is the one that I soaked the bottom and the top in about an inch of evapor rust. And that's, give it a good start before we go disassembling. Mind you, of course, the body's just pot metal. But the, carbon screws and shafts and doodads, still good to loosen it up. Just basically, these two screws are long and go all the way through the base plate. You want to take the base plate off first because it's got the wraparound accelerator pump deal. So instead of trying to pull the top off first, like you might on an early model, because early model's got a cotter pin clip and you can pull that out of the way. It's better to pull these top two screws, flip it, then take the bottom screws out and take the bottom off first. Then you can lift this off clean. Came out beautifully, no problems. Now we're going to flip it. You got two Phillips heads here. Some carburetors will have a third or fourth bolt, but this one just has the two. The bottom screws are always Phillips head and the top screws are always flathead until you get into the 80s and they went to torque stuff, which was kind of annoying. But this has the look of an unrebuilt carburetor. Note the split lock washers often are missing on stuff that people have gone through, but the washers were intact in this one. And we're still going to soak all this. I got to get some chem dip or something, clean up these parts. Got a lot of carburetors I actually need to build. I've just been pushing it off. So I got that out rather easily. Of course, this is Buick linkage, which is kind of a big pain in the butt because of this in the way. So we may end up just chopping it off right here because we ain't got no Buick and we ain't getting one. This is your detent cable, turbo 350 hookup, passing gear, and your throttle. That's all we need. This nonsense, we're just gonna remove that. Keep this though, that's a handy doodad. Might need it for something one day, put it in your carb parts. Now this is an area that often when they rebuild, people just throw JB weld on, which I did myself back in the day. It was really just the early carbs, like first generation carbs in the 60s, that had really had problems with the weld plugs leaking fuel out of the bowl. And there's better products to use actually. Because I guess over time the JB weld will fail, but a lot of the later carburetors after mid 70s or even early 70s, I don't think I ever had one leak. I have seen porosity fails on 80s carburetors before. But bottom line is there's a better product to use. I don't remember it offhand. But there's some good Facebook Quadrajet groups, and there's a great company here in Texas called Quadrajet Power or Quadra Power or something like that. They got everything you could ever want for parts, for help, or finished, redone carburetors, stock or custom. Check them out. Quadrajet Power in Texas. Limited liability company, I believe. This is stained on one side, so it's kind of peculiar. I don't know if somebody sealed that before, or is this like a varnishy sign of a leak? So we'll definitely be looking at sealing that stuff before we use this thing. We need to bust off this fuel nut. Fridays, you always got to go bust a nut. one way or another. So we're going to get the 5/8 and the 1 inch. That's what fits these every time. Well, at least on these kind. Loose, that was pretty tight. You can see there's some rust and some maybe sediment. We'll see how nasty this bowl is here in a minute. That had a Fram filter in it, which is okay. It's stuck in there though, I think, because when I soaked it vapor rust and then let it just air dry, it just made it sticky. Not rusted, but still get a gummy effect. Let's get that out of the way. Well, oh, fixed it. Now it's a lot of cleaning. Hopefully no dirt darbage. I'm gonna do the metering rods, the little hanger here. That's what enriches and lifts the rods up to the narrow bits that allow the fuel to pull into the 4 barrels, which are the back 2, of course. Well, that was a G hanger, which is good, but those are some thick, nasty, lean metering rods. Just like back in the day, the Buicks and the Oldsmobiles, various years, had the leanest, nastiest settings from the factory. But that doesn't mean we can't fix it. We're just going to recalibrate it. You know, like a lot of the Pontiac carburetors, early and later, were just far superior with a more closer to, you know, a performance-minded tune. It's drastic differences between the different BOP brands, how they calibrated their carbs, even in the same years on similar size engines of similar horsepower. It's crazy. Pulled the choke flap stuff off, the link bar here to the automatic choke. In the past, I'd always just strip the choke stuff off, but I'm finding now more I'd like to leave all the pieces intact, and then if I want to convert it from this hot air choke, I can just unscrew this and put an electric choke pod on it and just ignore this and just put the electric on it, and then boom, it's electric choke, and I didn't rip all the hardware out. Just leave it intact and clean it all. It's fine. I got the perimeter bolts, which would be these two, and this one. I already got those, and now it's left is the 2 down here, and I'll always use needle nose pliers to lift those out so I don't drop them. Especially if you're working on a carb on the car in an emergency, you might want a magnetic tip screwdriver. Just be careful with that. Turns out my cheap Harbor Freight set of screwdrivers are magnetic tip. Looky, looky. Get off of there. The top knocked loose from underneath. I gave it a whack with the handle going, you know, up hitting that. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the vacuum pull off first, get it out of the way. You always want to check your vacuum pull off. You just gotta take the old hose off, squish it in, and see if it'll hold vacuum. Try that again. Well, let's try that again. Hard to do that with my hand busy. Gonna push the air out. Hold. Hey, it's holding vacuum. That's a win. You always want to put that back because that's what keeps it from bogging. All those Quadrajet haters that just is screaming out there calling quadrabog, quadrajunk. What they're really telling you is I don't know how to work on a carburetor, so we'll just call it names. So the design of the Quadrajet superior to many other aftermarket brands. Actually the most sophisticated, best carburetor in the world, honestly. But these later diaphragms have a 1 second start to finish opening rate, which will not slow your car down, but what it will do is allow this to open slow enough for the vacuum sources that pull here first to help pull fuel up as a pre-fuel as it transitions to pulling fuel out of the nozzles. So it's got these little holes right here, and that's for the initial crack open, and you want that to suck the fuel from there, and then as that opens, then it full enriches, and that eliminates your bog. And of course you use a different metering rod in a performance application. That really would only be meant for restricted hot air, you know, not at performance at all. You flip the air cleaner over, put a chrome air cleaner on the car with this and drive around in the cold. I mean, it will be lean as all get out at wide open throttle. but easily fixed externally, just swapping the rods, lifting the hanger out. So you don't have to do anything. You just need to own a variety of rods. So this is ready to come off. See if we can get it past that choke arm. Well, there you go. There's a little crud on it, that's for sure. But let me get some of this out of there. Very shocked, but the boot is actually soft and pliable. And I managed to not rip the gaskets in half. They're hard as a rock, but I mean, I got gaskets, but that's kind of a nice thing. Keep them for spares. This little doodad here that does nothing is what we used to call it the hat, because it looks like a top hat. But what this is when they transitioned to this casting in 1975, they had an extra solenoid here in this overcomplicated transition enrichment circuit that was overcomplicated, and they bailed on it immediately. So they just started putting this in here to block off the area. But we always looked at it as sort of an extra side bowl of capacity. So I don't know, we would just pull it out and let the fuel, have that much more fuel in the bowl. Never had any issues with it. Also had a kind of a funny idea of like drilling across the side or over here and putting a side hung external extra bowl of capacity. Just a weird idea I've had recently if you wanted more fuel capacity, but that'd be a little crazy. Well, I took out power piston and primary metering rods. The jets are down there. And there's power piston spring that goes under that the engine vacuum at idling sucks it down, and then when you step on the gas, reduces vacuum, it lifts and enriches. There's the float and the needle. Got the little hat out of there. Accelerator pump return spring, that's fuel filter spring. Here's a little doodad that locates that and helps hold the float down. I got to get screwdrivers and get that jet out of there. I'm going to use a larger screwdrivers and get maximum contact strength, because sometimes they get stuck and they're brass, so you don't want to strip them. I've got the jets pulled out. I'm gonna have to clean them off so I can use a magnifying glass, because I'm getting old and can't seem to read stuff that small anymore. I'll see if I can. Let's see. Might be 71. A little bit of crud. I may have to lightly sand these to be able to read them. I think it's 71. Let me check again. They're 73s, which is actually a nice size, because usually we set up these 800 Quadrajets between a 72 and a 74 jet 90% of the time, so that's really good. I try to read these. Hold on a minute. Those rods ended up being 48K. It's about what I expected, I guess, to be a tad lean. I don't think you're going to be able to see it. Maybe, probably not. 48K. So usually I would set it up more like with a 42 to 44 rod, or up to 45. For comparisons, a Smog 180 horse low PO 77 Trans Am comes with a 72 jet with a 45 rod. And if I recall, a 77 350 Pontiac comes through with a 71 jet with a 44 or 43 rod, something like that. So 73 is nice, because I could just put a 70 or like a 44 rod in there, and it'd be pretty well perfect. Use 2 screwdrivers to get the needle and seat out. We're just prepping it to clean this thing at this point. We haven't got the material to soak it in yet. The hole right here is where this screw with this tip was, and the check ball's under it. And what that is your accelerator pump check ball. So it will only go one way. When you squirt fuel and then it sucks back, it'll suck in more fuel. Just so you know what that is. Here is the seat rather. That's original, but your kits usually come with the high performance one, And the reason you can tell is now that's got a good diameter in the hole, but a lot of your new ones have what I call windows. They're opened on the side so fuel can flow out, not just around the top, but out the side when it lifts it. So usually I always want to use a windowed seat, and then they have, the larger diameter. You can get a max, because that's all the flow. All 4 barrels for fuel only go through that. It's crazy how a Quadrajet can even work, because that hole down there is all that gets in the carburetor. It's really amazing compared to a lot of the other carburetors have front and rear bowls and needles and such. And Quadrajets easily, with very little modification, will support over 500 horsepower with a proper fuel delivery and tune, obviously. Pretty cool. Hey y'all, thanks for watching me on this Quadrajet exploratory teardown and tech filled part 1 of I guess maybe 2 or 3 more probably on this carburetor. I got to go get the stuff to soak it and clean it. But thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, share. Try to sit through some of my videos. I need some watch hours, brothers, sisters out there. But we've got quite a few videos, and a lot of them have some technical info on them. You might just have a look-see. There's a lot in there. But thanks for watching and hanging out. One Man Garage.